My mother tried to force my daughter to wear the purple unicorn dress Mark bought for her. When I told her we wouldn't be attending the party, she smiled and said, "Then I hope you're ready to explain to a 5-year-old why mommy ruined everything." I threw the dress in the trash. That was 3 days ago. Yesterday, she called my husband, screaming that I'd poisoned our daughter against her and then hung up mid-sentence. Growing up, there was just one rule in our family. Blood is thicker than water. It was drilled into us at every family gathering. We had these massive Sunday dinners at my grandparents' house every month with like 30 people showing up. And every single time someone would ask where cousin Jamie was, the answer was always the same. "Oh, you know Jamie, always working." I was 28 when I ran into Jamie at the grocery store. First time I'd seen her in 13 years. She went completely pale when she saw me and tried to leave, but I grabbed her arm and insisted we get coffee. I mentioned how my 5-year-old daughter loved art just like Jamie used to. That's when she broke down. She grabbed my hands and begged me to never let my daughter near the family gatherings. Then she just ran out before I could ask why. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. Old family photos on my mom's mantle had weird gaps where someone had been cropped out. Jamie's name never came up in stories about the old days. When I asked my mom about it, she got all defensive and said Jamie made her choice to abandon the family. But that didn't make sense because I remembered Jamie being this star student with a full scholarship to art school. Then Uncle Rob got drunk at my parents' anniversary party and let something slip. He said Jamie destroyed our family with her lies. My mom shut him up real quick, but I saw the look they exchanged. I found Jamie on social media and begged her to tell me what happened. She didn't want to at first, but when I sent her a picture of my daughter, she finally agreed to meet. We sat in her car outside a Starbucks, and she told me everything. Uncle Mark had been molesting her since she was 8 years old. Uncle Mark, who everyone loved. Uncle Mark, who was my grandparents' golden child. She finally told her parents when she was 15, and they called a family meeting. My grandparents accused her of trying to destroy the family, said blood is thicker than water, and she needed to think about what she was doing to everyone. Her own mother coached her to take it back, asked if ruining everyone's lives was worth it. The worst part was that other cousins had come forward privately and admitted it happened to them too, but they were too scared of losing the family to say anything publicly. When Jamie refused to recant, they branded her a liar and an attention seeker. They literally erased her from the family, removed her birthday from the calendar, and edited her out of photos, told everyone she declined her scholarship and ran away. I remembered being 15 and my parents telling me Jamie was sick in the head. I believed them. Everything started clicking into place. Uncle Mark always volunteered for kid duty at gatherings. He'd offered to babysit my daughter last month. I discovered 3 other female cousins had mysteriously moved away over the years. Found my Aunt Sarah's number and called her. She confirmed her daughter was a victim too, and the family forced them out when they wouldn't stay quiet. The thing that really got me was realizing Uncle Mark basically owned everyone. He paid for my grandparents' medical care and had given loans to half the family for their businesses. My own parents had borrowed $50,000 from him to save their house during the recession. That's when my daughter made a comment that made my blood run cold. She said Uncle Mark's games were weird. I found old home videos and sure enough, there he was, always positioned near the young girls, always finding reasons to be alone with them. The next family gathering, I showed up late and couldn't find my daughter anywhere. Panic started rising as I searched room after room. Then I saw Uncle Mark's study door was locked. I heard my daughter's voice inside saying she wanted her mommy. I pounded on that door until he opened it with this sick smile on his face. My daughter was at his desk coloring. He said he was just teaching her some special art techniques like he did with me at her age. That's when the memory hit me. Being 5 years old and alone with him. Something wrong that I couldn't quite remember, but my body remembered the fear. I grabbed my daughter and rushed to find my parents, dragged them into the garage and demanded answers. My mother hissed at me not to cause a scene. Then they admitted it. They all knew. They said he was sick but controlled now. That they had a system of watchers at every gathering to make sure he was never alone with the kids. But nobody told me I was supposed to be watching. My father said Jamie's parents failed her by leaving her alone with him. That my daughter was safe as long as I followed the rules. My mother said tomorrow was Grandpa's 85th birthday with 200 people coming and Uncle Mark was giving the toast. I could smile and clap or I could be Jamie, erased, penniless, and alone. The door opened and my grandmother walked in asking if everything was all right. She said Mark was looking for me because he had a birthday gift for my daughter. They all stared at me waiting for my answer. My phone buzzed, a text from Jamie asking if I got my daughter away from them. Then I heard my daughter calling from the house asking where I was because Uncle Mark wanted to show her something. I ran. My feet moved before my brain caught up, racing through the house toward my daughter's voice. She stood in the living room with Uncle Mark kneeling beside her, his hand on her shoulder. My mother appeared behind me, gripping my arm hard enough to leave marks. I yanked free and scooped up my daughter, who protested about the pretty bracelet Uncle Mark wanted to give her. My hands shook as I carried her to the car. Behind us, my father blocked the doorway while my grandmother called out about ruining the party preparations. The drive home blurred past. My daughter chattered about coloring while I white-knuckled the steering wheel. At every red light, I checked the mirrors, half expecting to see someone following us. My phone rang constantly. Mom, Dad, grandmother, unknown numbers that could only be other family members recruited to bring me back in line. I pulled into our garage and sat there with the engine running. My daughter had fallen asleep in her car seat. Looking at her peaceful face, I understood why Jamie ran, why all those cousins disappeared. The family machine would grind up anyone who threatened their perfect image. Inside, I deadbolted every lock and drew all the curtains. My husband would be home from his business trip tomorrow. How could I even begin to explain this? Hey honey, turns out my family has been protecting a predator for decades, and our daughter is his next target. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of my daughter at last month's family barbecue. Uncle Mark stood in the background watching her play. The message read, "Such a sweet girl. Would be a shame if something happened to her mother." I screenshot everything and started a new folder on my laptop. Evidence. If they wanted to play dirty, I needed ammunition. I scrolled through years of family photos on social media, now seeing the patterns. Young girls who smiled less as they got older, cousins who stopped appearing at gatherings right around age 15. My daughter woke up asking for dinner. I made her favorite mac and cheese while she colored at the kitchen table. Every few minutes I checked the windows. Paranoid maybe, but Jamie had warned me they had ways of keeping people in line. After bedtime, I called Jamie from the bathroom with the water running. She answered on the first ring. I told her about the confrontation and the threat. She went quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. She explained their system, how they isolated anyone who spoke up, spread rumors about mental illness, used their connections to make job opportunities disappear. Her own parents still sent her birthday cards with photos of family gatherings, reminding her what she gave up. I asked about the other cousins who left. Jamie gave me 3 names. Alexandra had moved to Canada after her parents chose Uncle Mark over her. Victoria worked nights to avoid any chance of running into family. Danny had changed her last name and still flinched whenever she saw someone who looked like him. Jamie offered to connect us all. Strength in numbers, she said, but warned me to be careful. The family had resources and connections I didn't even know about. Uncle Mark's money touched everything from the local police charity fund to the school board. I hung up feeling more trapped than ever. Outside, a car engine started. Through the blinds, I saw a familiar sedan parked across the street. My father's car. They were watching me. The next morning, I kept my daughter home from preschool. Told them she had a stomach bug. Really, I just couldn't risk letting her out of my sight. We built pillow forts and had a dance party, but my mind raced through escape plans. My husband called from his hotel. I almost told him everything right then, but the words stuck in my throat. How do you explain that your entire childhood was built on lies? That the family he'd welcomed him into was rotten at its core? Instead, I asked him to come home early. Said I missed him. He laughed and promised to catch the first flight in the morning. 24 hours. I just had to keep us safe for 24 hours. My mother showed up at noon with my spare key. I'd forgotten she had one. She let herself in while I was making lunch, criticizing the messy kitchen and asking why my daughter wasn't at school. Her voice stayed pleasant, but her eyes were cold. She reminded me about tomorrow's birthday party. How disappointed Grandpa would be if his favorite great-granddaughter wasn't there. How Uncle Mark had spent weeks planning the perfect gift. How the whole family was counting on us. I kept my voice steady and said we wouldn't be coming. Well, the family's system of watchers to monitor Uncle Mark is about as reassuring as putting a fox in charge of counting chickens while everyone takes turns making sure he doesn't eat any. She laughed like I'd made a joke. Then she noticed my laptop open to the folder of photos. Her face changed. She asked what I thought I was doing. Before I could answer, my daughter ran in asking if Grandma had brought cookies. My mother's whole demeanor shifted. She knelt down and pulled out a bag of homemade chocolate chips, the kind she knew my daughter loved. Started talking about all the fun surprises waiting at Great-Grandpa's party. I stepped between them, but my mother had already planted the seed. My daughter bounced with excitement about seeing everyone tomorrow, about the special present Uncle Mark had for her. My mother smiled at me over her head. Checkmate. I grabbed the cookies from my mother's hand and tossed them in the trash. My daughter's face crumpled, but I couldn't let my mother use her favorite treats as manipulation tools. My mother stood slowly, her pleasant mask slipping to reveal something harder underneath. She walked to the living room and sat on my couch like she owned it. I followed, keeping my daughter in the kitchen with her coloring books. My mother examined her manicured nails while explaining how things would work. The birthday party wasn't optional. Uncle Mark had already told everyone about the special art set he'd bought for my daughter. People would ask questions if we didn't show. I watched her fidget with her wedding ring, the one Uncle Mark had helped my father buy 30 years ago. She reminded me about their loan, how Uncle Mark could call it in anytime, how my father's business depended on contracts Uncle Mark had arranged, how my cousin's scholarship to nursing school came from a foundation Uncle Mark controlled. My daughter appeared in the doorway asking for juice. I got up to help her, but my mother hit me to it. She walked my daughter back to the kitchen, her hand firm on those small shoulders. I heard the refrigerator open, glasses clinking, too much time passing. I rushed in to find my mother showing my daughter photos on her phone, pictures from last year's birthday party. My daughter pointing excitedly at the bouncy castle, the pony rides, all the cousins playing together. I snatched the phone away. My mother gathered her purse and keys, mentioning she'd already bought my daughter's party dress, size 5T, purple with unicorns, hanging in her car. She'd drop it by tomorrow morning along with directions to the venue, the new country club Uncle Mark had helped fund. After she left, I found her spare key on the counter. She'd left it there deliberately, a reminder she could come back anytime. I threw it in the junk drawer and started planning. My daughter needed to understand without being scared. I told her we were playing a special game where we practiced staying close to mommy at all times. Made it fun, like follow the leader. She giggled and followed me room to room. I texted Jamie asking for the other cousin's contact information. While waiting for her response, I went through our finances. Without my job, we had maybe 2 months of savings. My husband made decent money, but not enough to cover everything alone. I'd quit 3 months ago to focus on freelance writing. Stupid timing. Jamie sent me Alexandra's number first. I called while my daughter napped. Alexandra answered on the 10th ring, her voice cautious. When I explained who I was and why I was calling, she went silent. Then she asked if I was recording. If this was some family trick to get her to say something they could use against her. I convinced her by sharing details about finding my daughter with Uncle Mark. She started crying, told me about the years of therapy, the nightmares that still woke her, how she'd changed her name twice because the family kept finding her, how her own mother had signed papers saying she was mentally unstable when she'd tried to warn her younger sister. Alexandra gave me Victoria's information but warned she might not answer. Victoria had built walls around her life, worked as a night security guard to avoid normal social interactions, lived in a studio apartment with 3 deadbolts. Alexandra had tried reaching out last year, but Victoria couldn't handle talking about the past. I tried anyway, left a voicemail explaining the situation, mentioned my daughter's age, how I needed advice on protecting her. My phone rang back within minutes. Victoria's voice sounded hollow, like she was speaking from far away. She told me to run, pack up and leave town. Don't tell anyone where I was going. Don't wait for my husband, just go. But I explained about the birthday party tomorrow, how my mother had already set the trap with my daughter. Victoria laughed, but it sounded more like choking. She said that's how they worked. Used the children's excitement against us, made us the bad guys for protecting them. She told me about her escape attempt at 16, how she'd told her school counselor, how the counselor had called her parents for a meeting, how Uncle Mark had shown up instead, explaining his poor niece's history of mental illness. The counselor believed him. Everyone always believed him. I asked about Danny. Victoria said she'd disappeared completely 5 years ago, changed her name, moved states, dates, cut off everyone who might connect her to the family. The last Victoria heard, Danny was working at a domestic violence shelter somewhere in the Midwest, using her experience to help other women escape. My daughter woke up cranky from her nap. I made her snack while processing everything. 3 cousins confirmed. Who knew how many others stayed silent, still trapped in the family web? I thought about my teenage cousins who'd be at tomorrow's party. Brittany, who just turned 13. Little Sophia, who was 7. Were they safe? Did their parents know to watch? The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my father holding a gift bag. I didn't answer. He knocked again, called my name, said he just wanted to talk, that Mom was worried about me. The gift was from Uncle Mark, an early birthday present for my daughter since we might miss the party. I stayed silent. My daughter asked who was at the door. I distracted her with a movie while my father eventually gave up, but I watched him walk to his car and sit there, engine off, waiting. I closed all the blinds and moved my daughter's play area to the back room. Jamie texted asking if I was okay. I told her about the surveillance, the pressure. She shared her own story of the weeks after she spoke up. Family members taking shifts outside her apartment. Her boss getting calls about her mental state. Finding her tires slashed. Her parents showing up at her job with doctors, trying to have her committed. She survived by recording everything. Every interaction, every threat. Built a file that would make them back off. Suggested I do the same. Document the stalking, the manipulation, create evidence they couldn't deny or twist. My phone battery was dying. As I plugged it in, I noticed several missed calls from unknown numbers. The voicemails were from aunts and uncles I barely spoke to, concerned about my behavior, hoping I wouldn't ruin Grandpa's special day, reminding me how much he'd done for our family. I started a document on my laptop, timeline of events, screenshots of texts, photos of my father's car still parked outside. My daughter played quietly nearby, occasionally showing me her drawings. One made me freeze. A picture of Uncle Mark. She'd drawn him with a big smile and labeled it "Nice Man." I asked when she'd drawn it. She said Grandma had helped her yesterday when I was in the bathroom. Suggested she make something special for Uncle Mark since he gave the best presents. My stomach churned. The grooming was already starting, and I'd missed it. Evening fell with my father still outside. I made dinner, gave my daughter a bath, all while checking windows. She asked why we couldn't go outside to play. I made up a story about rain coming, but the sky was clear. She wasn't stupid. Kids always know when something's wrong. During bedtime stories, she asked about the party tomorrow. Would there be cake? Would her cousins be there? I told her we might do something else instead. Her face fell. She'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Grandma had promised pony rides. After she fell asleep, I sat in the dark living room watching my father's silhouette in his car. My husband would land at 8 tomorrow morning. The party started at noon. I had to make him understand in 4 hours what had taken me days to process. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my Aunt Patricia. A photo of the art set Uncle Mark had bought. Professional grade supplies in a wooden case. The kind any artistic child would treasure. The kind that came with private lessons from Uncle Mark in his studio. I remembered his studio. The converted pool house at my grandparents' estate. Soundproofed for his music hobby. One entrance, no windows. Where he'd taught dozens of little girls about art over the years. Where Jamie had spent hours every Sunday. Where my daughter would be expected to go tomorrow. Another car pulled up behind my father's. My Uncle Rob got out, carrying what looked like takeout bags. They were settling in for the night, making sure I couldn't run. I photographed everything from behind the curtains. Timestamps, license plates, faces illuminated by phone screens. Around midnight, exhaustion hit, but I couldn't sleep with them outside. I made coffee and opened my laptop again. Started researching. Found old newspaper clippings about Uncle Mark's business success. His charity work. The children's wing at the hospital he'd funded. All those smiling photos with kids. One article mentioned his wife, my Aunt Linda. She'd died when I was 10. Cancer, everyone said. But now I wondered. She'd been trying to have children for years. Had she discovered something? The timing seemed suspicious now. Right around when Jamie would have been 13. When things might have been escalating. Purple unicorns and hidden car keys make quite the grandmother's toolkit. Nothing says loving family visit like strategic manipulation and a side of stalking served with chocolate chip cookies. I found her obituary. Survived by loving husband Mark. No mention of the sleeping pills. The family had hidden that part. Said the cancer had spread to her brain. Made her confused. But what if she'd known? What if she'd tried to stop him and found no way out but one? My laptop dinged. An email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line just said, "You're not alone." Inside, a message from someone named Rebecca. Another cousin. One I'd never heard of. Born before I was. Erased even more thoroughly than Jamie. She'd been watching our family from afar for 20 years. Waiting for someone else to see the truth. She lived 2 states away now. Married, 2 kids she'd never let meet their extended family. She'd seen my social media posts about my daughter. Recognized the danger. Been trying to figure out how to warn me without exposing herself. Rebecca's story was worse than the others. She'd been Uncle Mark's first. The practice child before he perfected his system. When she'd told at age 12, the family wasn't prepared. The confrontation had been messier. Police were almost involved. That's when Uncle Mark had started spreading his money around. Buying silence and loyalty. She attached photos. Old family pictures from before my time. Her face carefully cut out of group shots. But she'd kept the originals. Uncle Mark looked younger but the same predatory smile. Always touching a child's shoulder. Always positioned near the smallest girls. I wrote back asking for advice. She responded immediately, like she'd been waiting. Said the only way out was complete separation. No contact, no compromise. The family would use any opening to pull us back. They'd weaponize our children's disappointment. Make us doubt ourselves. Promised they'd changed, but they never changed. Just got better at hiding. She'd heard about other victims over the years. Whispers that reached her through friends of friends. The family had paid for abortions, therapy, silence, whatever it took to keep their reputation intact. By 3 a.m., my eyes burned. The cars outside hadn't moved. I made more coffee and checked on my daughter. She slept peacefully, clutching the stuffed unicorn Grandma had given her last Christmas. Everything in her room came from family. The furniture Uncle Mark had bought. The clothes from various aunts. All of it tainted now. I started packing a bag, just essentials. If we had to run, we'd need to move fast. But where would we go? My husband's family lived across the country, but they'd find us there. Hotels cost money we didn't have. Friends would ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. My phone buzzed. Jamie again. She'd been thinking and had an idea. Her friend ran a women's shelter 1 town over. Not for us to stay, but they had resources. pros, legal advocates who understood family abuse, counselors who specialized in helping mothers protect their children, people who wouldn't be swayed by Uncle Mark's donations. I saved the number but hesitated to call. Once I involved outside help, there'd be no taking it back. The family would close ranks completely. My parents would choose him over me, just like Jamie's had, just like all the others. 28 years of relationships gone. But then I thought about my daughter's drawing, that big smile she'd given Uncle Mark, how easily they'd already started grooming her right under my nose. How many more chances would they get if I stayed silent? How many ways could they separate us at that huge party tomorrow? Dawn broke slowly. My father's car finally left around 6, probably to get ready for the party. But Uncle Rob stayed. They'd maintain surveillance until they got me to that party. I made breakfast for my daughter, trying to act normal. She chattered about her dreams, about the pony rides Grandma promised. I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't explain that Grandma was complicit in hurting little girls. That great Uncle Mark was dangerous. That the whole family she loved would choose a predator over her safety. She was only 5. She deserved better than this sick legacy. My husband texted from the airport. Boarding now? Couldn't wait to see us. I stared at my phone, trying to find words. How could I summarize this nightmare in a text? Instead, I just said we needed to talk as soon as he landed. He sent back a worried emoji but didn't push. 7:30. My daughter dressed herself in her favorite rainbow dress, asked if we could practice braiding her hair for the party. I sat behind her, fingers shaking as I wove the strands. She hummed a song from her favorite movie. So innocent, so trusting. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw my mother holding a garment bag, the purple unicorn dress. She knocked again, called out that she knew I was awake. My daughter heard her voice and ran for the door before I could stop her. I reached the door as my daughter was turning the lock, scooped her up as she protested. My mother's voice came through the door, sweet as poison, telling my daughter she had her special dress, that all her cousins were excited to see her, that Uncle Mark's surprise was even better than she'd imagined. My daughter wiggled in my arms, reaching for the door, asking why we couldn't let Grandma in. My mother kept talking, describing the party in detail, the petting zoo, the face painting, the treasure hunt Uncle Mark had planned just for the children, each word carefully chosen to maximize my daughter's excitement and my guilt. I carried my daughter back to her room, her cries getting louder. She didn't understand why I was being mean, why I wouldn't let her see Grandma, why we couldn't go to the party everyone had been talking about for weeks. I felt like the villain in her story. My phone rang. My husband landed early. I answered with relief, but my mother must have heard. Her voice got louder, telling my daughter that Daddy was home, that he'd want to go to the party too, that Mommy was just tired and confused, that everything would be okay once we were all together as a family. I hung up on my husband and texted him not to come home, to wait at the airport, that I'd explain everything. But he'd already gotten an Uber, already on his way, 20 minutes out. My mother would intercept him in the driveway, spin her story before I could tell mine. Time was running out. I grabbed the bag I'd packed, dressed my daughter quickly despite her protests, told her we were going on an adventure. She didn't want an adventure. She wanted her party. But I buckled her into her car seat, ignoring the tears. My mother stood by her car as I backed out. She didn't try to stop me, just watched with that knowing smile. She'd already won. My daughter was sobbing for her grandma. My husband was heading home to an empty house and a mother-in-law with a story to tell. The party would go on without us, but the questions would follow. I drove toward the address Jamie had given me, the women's shelter. My daughter cried herself to sleep in the back seat. In the rearview mirror, I saw Uncle Rob's car following at a distance. They wouldn't let us disappear easily. My phone exploded with calls and texts. My husband, confused and worried. My mother, switching between concern and threats. Other family members, deployed to guilt and manipulate. I turned it off, focused on the road. The shelter was 15 minutes away. 15 minutes to figure out how to explain this to strangers. 15 minutes before my husband got the family's version of events. But I kept driving, because behind me was a house full of poisoned gifts and grooming disguised as love. Ahead was uncertainty, but also the possibility of safety. My daughter might hate me today, but she'd be alive and whole tomorrow. That had to be enough. The shelter's parking lot was hidden behind trees, discreet. I pulled in, Uncle Rob's car slowing as he passed. He'd have to report back where I'd gone. The family would know within minutes. But I was already lifting my sleeping daughter from her seat, already walking toward the unmarked door, already choosing her safety over their approval. Inside the shelter, a woman with tired eyes took one look at my sleeping daughter and led us to a quiet room. She handed me intake forms, but I couldn't focus on the questions. My hands kept shaking. Through the window, I watched Uncle Rob's car circle the block twice before parking across the street. My phone stayed off, but I knew the messages were piling up. My husband would be home by now, probably getting an earful from my mother. The birthday party would start in 3 hours. 200 people expecting us. Uncle Mark preparing his toast. The advocate returned with water and crackers. She sat across from me while my daughter stirred in my lap. I tried explaining, but the words came out jumbled. Family party, uncle, danger. She nodded like she'd heard it all before. Probably had. My daughter woke asking where we were. I told her it was a special place where nice people helped families. She wanted to go home, wanted her party dress. I distracted her with the crackers while the advocate made phone calls in the hallway. Through the door's small window, I saw 2 more cars pull up outside. My father's sedan, another uncle's truck. They were mobilizing. The advocate noticed too. She came back in and suggested we move to a more secure area of the building. We followed her deeper into the facility, past rooms where other women sat with their own children, past a playroom filled with donated toys. My daughter perked up at the sight of other kids. The advocate said she could play while we talked. I watched my daughter join a group building blocks. So easily she adapted, so trusting that wherever mommy took her was safe. The advocate led me to a small office and closed the door. She asked direct questions. Was there immediate danger? Had anyone hurt my child? Did I have somewhere safe to go? I explained about Uncle Mark, the family system, the financial control. She took notes without judgment, said they'd seen similar situations, families protecting abusers, using money and connection as weapons, making victims feel crazy for speaking up. My phone finally died completely. Small mercy. The advocate offered to charge it, but I declined. Not ready for whatever waited in those messages. She understood, said I could stay as long as needed to make a plan. Through the office window, I watched my daughter playing. Another little girl had shared her doll. They were having a tea party on the carpet. Normal kid stuff, safe kid stuff. No uncles with special games, no grandmothers with poisoned cookies. The advocate brought in another woman, a counselor who specialized in family trauma. She sat with that same knowing look, asked if I wanted to talk about what happened. I found myself spilling everything. Jamie's warning, the confrontation, the surveillance, my daughter's drawing of Uncle Mark. She validated every feeling, the confusion, the guilt, the fear. Said grooming often started exactly how I'd described. Gifts, special attention, normalizing inappropriate relationships, teaching children to keep secrets through games and rewards. A knock interrupted us. Another staff member poked her head in. There were men outside asking about a woman and child, describing my car, claiming family emergency. The shelter had protocols for this. They'd already called police to move the vehicles along. I panicked about my husband. He'd be frantic by now. The counselor suggested calling him from their phone, let him hear my voice, give my location, but I hesitated. What if my mother had already convinced him I was having some kind of breakdown? What if he brought my parents here? The advocate offered a compromise. She'd call him, verify his identity, assess his state of mind, make sure he came alone. I agreed and gave his number. Watched her dial from the desk phone, professional, calm, explaining she was calling on my behalf. I heard his voice through the receiver, confused, worried. My mother had indeed filled his head with stories. Said I'd been acting strange all week, paranoid, keeping our daughter from family. The advocate kept her tone neutral. Said I was safe. Our daughter was safe. Would he like to come see us? She gave him the address but not the nature of the facility. Said to come alone. Park in the back lot. Text when he arrived. He agreed immediately. 20 minutes out. The advocate hung up and assured me she'd screen him before letting him in. I returned to watch my daughter play. She'd moved on to dress-up clothes with her new friend, twirling in a princess cape, giggling, being a kid. The counselor joined me at the window. Said children were resilient. With support, they could heal from almost anything. My mind went to all those cousins. Jamie, Alexandra, Victoria, Danny, Rebecca. How different might their lives have been with early intervention, with mothers who believed them, with families who chose them over their abuser? The advocate returned. Said several family members had been turned away by security. They'd tried various stories. Medical emergency, death in the family, custody papers. The shelter had seen every manipulation tactic. None worked here. Time crawled. The birthday party would be starting now. Guests arriving. Uncle Mark probably wondering where his special girl was. My parents making excuses. The family machine adapting to our absence. But for the first time, I didn't care what story they spun. My husband arrived. The advocate met him outside. I watched from a window as they talked. His body language shifted from defensive to shocked. He kept running his hands through his hair. The advocate gestured toward the building. He nodded, followed her in. When he entered our room, his face was pale. He looked between me and our daughter, still playing dress-up. I saw the moment understanding hit, the pieces clicking together, all those family gatherings, Uncle Mark's interest in our daughter, my parents' insistence on attendance. He sat beside me without speaking, took my hand, squeezed. The counselor gave us space but stayed nearby. My daughter noticed Daddy and ran over in her princess cape. He scooped her up, held her tight. Over her shoulder, his eyes met mine, wet with tears. The advocate returned with options: emergency housing assistance, counseling referrals, legal resources, all sliding scale or free. She explained our rights, how to document everything, how to establish boundaries, how to protect our daughter without involving systems that might not understand. My husband asked about the birthday party. What would happen when we didn't show? The advocate said the family would likely escalate before accepting our boundaries. Extinction burst, she called it. The desperate attempts to regain control. We should expect calls, visits, flying monkeys sent to guilt us back. But we had choices. We could stay with friends, change our routines, make safety plans. The counselor added that we didn't have to cut off everyone. Some family members might surprise us, choose protection over complicity. But that was our decision to make. My daughter got hungry. The shelter had a communal kitchen. We ate sandwiches while she colored with her new friend. Such a simple thing. A meal without watching doors, without calculating who sat where, without Uncle Mark volunteering to supervise the children's table. The afternoon wore on. My husband's phone rang constantly too. He let it go to voicemail. We'd face the messages later, together. For now, we focused on our daughter, on keeping her routine as normal as possible despite the upheaval. The advocate helped us make a plan. We'd stay with my husband's coworker tonight, someone my family didn't know. Tomorrow we'd meet with a family lawyer, start documenting everything, build our case for why we needed distance. As we prepared to leave, the counselor pulled me aside, gave me a card with crisis numbers, said the healing journey wasn't linear. There'd be hard days, doubt, guilt, maybe even moments of wanting to return to the familiar dysfunction. All normal, all survivable with support. We left through the back exit. My husband had moved his car there. No sign of my family's vehicles. They'd probably given up for now, regrouping at the party, spinning their narrative about my instability, my selfishness, how I'd ruined Grandpa's special day. But as I buckled my daughter into her car seat, she wasn't crying for the party anymore, wasn't asking about Uncle Mark's present, just chattering about her new friend, about the princess game they'd played, about coming back to play again soon. The drive to the coworker's house was quiet. My daughter dozed off again. My husband reached over and took my hand. We'd have to talk, process, figure out how to move forward. But for now, we drove toward safety, toward a future where our daughter wouldn't have to navigate family gatherings like a minefield. My phone, finally charged in the car, showed 57 missed calls, twice as many texts. I deleted them unread. Tomorrow, I'd craft a careful response, set boundaries, make our position clear. But tonight was for rest, for holding my family close, for believing we'd made the right choice even when it felt like we'd lost everything. The coworker's house was modest but welcoming. She'd set up an air mattress in the spare room, made up the couch, acted like harboring refugees from family dysfunction was perfectly normal. Maybe in her world it was. That night, my daughter slept between us, safe, protected, unaware of the storm we'd weathered. My husband and I lay awake, processing in whispers. He admitted he'd noticed things too, dismissed them, assumed the family knew best, promised we'd face whatever came next together. I thought about Jamie, wondered if she'd ever found peace after escaping, if the other cousins had, if Rebecca's children grew up free from the family shadow, if healing was possible after generations of sickness. My daughter stirred in her sleep, rolled closer to me. Her small hand found mine in the dark, held tight, and I knew, whatever we'd lost today, whatever battles lay ahead, this moment was worth it. She was safe, she was whole. The cycle was broken. Thanks for reading this story with me. See you all in the next story.